The Joker is easily one of the most recognizable characters at this point in all of fiction. He is the face of chaos, the symbol of madness, and the definitive counterpart to Batman's absolute order. But somewhere along the way, a couple things have changed. And the Joker has stopped being so terrifying and started being a lot more, if we're going to be honest, cool. He has become a pop culture icon, a Halloween costume, and a subject of endless origin stories. Not all that I like, not all that I really enjoy, but either way, he has become such a name brand comic character that even people that don't know anything about comics know who the Joker is. And honestly, this is where the problem starts. Because when you really think about it, the Joker was never meant to be a popular character. Obviously, he was meant to be a popular villain, but he was meant to be horrifying. He was meant to be scary. He was meant to be unlikable. And the problem with Joker's popularity and the character and the way that he's become as of now really just causes so many more things to kind of happen in coalescence with his popularity that it diminishes the kind of character that we would want him to be. So, let me explain to you my thought process on this. Firstly, talking about just the background and how the Joker became the symbol of chaos. Because when the Joker first appeared in Batman #1 back in 1940, he wasn't a tragic figure. He wasn't misunderstood. He was a murderer with a smile, a remorseless killer who existed only to prove that life was meaningless, and eventually even coming to the point where now, just to prove that one bad day is enough to make any man go insane. Inspired by Conrad Vedelt's performance in The Man Who Laughs, the original Joker was a walking nightmare, the embodiment of chaos in a world built on rules. But over the decades, writers and artists have basically done a lot and just couldn't resist reinventing him. In the Silver Age, censorship neutered his violence and made him more of a prankster than a monster. Then came The Killing Joke by Alan Moore, a story that redefined him entirely. Suddenly, the Joker had potential again. He was a failed comedian, a victim of circumstance, and a reflection of tragedy itself. The book is a masterpiece, but also accidentally humanized the Joker in a way that made people actually relate to him a little more. Not a lot of people, but some. And then once you make that monster relatable or somewhat a lot more enjoyable and actually understandable, people start to root for him. And obviously, everybody's always going to be rooting for Batman, but there are those people that actively, truly love the Joker as a character. And I love him as a villain, but there are other kinds of people, obviously. But then we can fast forward to the modern era with people like Heath Ledger, rest in peace, Joaquin Phoenix, and countless animated versions, video games, graphic novels, and so many other things. The Joker at this point isn't just a villain anymore. He is a brand. He's on posters, Funko Pops, t-shirts. He is the literal face of rebellion, of chaos, of individuality, and people quote him, idolize him, and even have tattoos of his lines on their skin. But what they're idolizing isn't the Joker. It's the idea of him. Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight is arguably and possibly one of the greatest performances in cinematic history, but it also created a very dangerous side effect. People started misunderstanding what made that version so compelling. He wasn't meant to be cool. He was meant to be terrifying, and a lot of people truly did understand that. The agent of anarchy with no moral compass was exactly what Heath Ledger portrayed brilliantly. Because he was so magnetic and all of those things, but just due to the fact that he was so magnetic, audience glorified him instead of actually fearing him. And then came the 2019's version of the Joker, a film that turned Arthur Fleck into a symbol of social collapse and mental illness. It is a stunning movie, and I will never, ever have anything bad to say about that movie because I truly do love it as a movie in general, as a Joker solo film that doesn't really have Batman involved at all, which I thought was an interesting decision, but it worked very well for the movie. And it really just caused one major problem because it blurred that line between empathy and endorsement. People walked out of that movie quoting the character's speeches like they were revolutionary manifestos. Suddenly, the Joker wasn't a villain anymore. He was a voice for the broken, a misunderstood victim of society. And therein lies the problem. Because the Joker's entire point, his entire narrative, and the entire narrative purpose that he has is to be beyond redemption. The entire argument of us having why shouldn't Bruce be able to kill the Joker because there is no going back is strictly due to that fact. The fact that there is no redeeming him. There is no possible way to go back from the things that he's done. He isn't somebody that we're supposed to understand. He isn't somebody that we're supposed to root for, that we're supposed to have empathy for. He is the abyss that Batman stares into and never buckles. He is the proof that some people can't be saved and some people might need to be taken out at some point in time. Because if we're being honest, the more that we see the Joker, the less of the impact he has. When every story tries to reinvent him or give him depth, he loses what made him so effective. That mystery, that unpredictability. We have the three Joker storyline for a reason. There is that fear that we're supposed to have with him, and if we're being honest, there is no fear with familiarity involved. When you get that entire personal touch, that fear starts trickling away because you know too much. The point of being afraid is not knowing what could possibly happen if something goes wrong. So that's kind of where my mind is going into. The Joker works the best when he is used sparingly. Think about him in The Dark Knight Returns. Think about him in Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on a Serious Earth, or Endgame, or whatever. In these stories, the Joker isn't just chaos. He is the final test of Batman's morality. He's not everywhere. He's the storm that hits once in a generation. He is the kind of final last man standing in that sense. He is the final boss. You're not supposed to see him for every singular arc of the story. You're not supposed to see him for every step along the way. He's supposed to be there when he needs to be, not everywhere all at once. But now, the Joker is basically just more omnipresent. He's in multiple comics at once, starring in solo series, headlining movies, even having spin-offs about his girlfriend, which, obviously, I love Harley Quinn. We're never gonna diss. But the DC's obsession with the Joker has made him feel less like a threat and more like a franchise mascot. Because when every story is about the Joker, the world he inhabits stops feeling as dangerous. Because what made him terrifying wasn't just his actions, it was his absence. It was the distance that you had to feel from him. You never knew when he would strike, you never knew exactly what he would do, but now you can practically set your watch by him. You know the chaos, you've gotten used to the chaos, and controlled chaos isn't as good as what the Joker was originally supposed to be. Unfiltered, unbridled, absolute chaos that could be anywhere at any time, doing anything. So yeah, there is a very big problem with the Joker. And that problem is that overexposure that he's had so much of. Because overexposure changes everything. When the villain appears too often, they lose the mystery. Unless the villain obviously is somebody that you just don't know is the villain. Then that adds to the intrigue. But we know the Joker's a villain. So that mystery is just so far gone. When they get too much sympathy, when they gain all of this notoriety that he's gained, they lose their menace. Obviously, Joker will always still be scary, but he has basically become the face of a brand. So he's lost that narrative purpose that we've once had. He's lost that big giant threat that we used to feel every time that we heard the Joker. Especially during like Heath Ledger's time. We knew the Joker was about that action. And while he still is, that action feels a lot different. That's where we are with the Joker today. Even with the way that he's portrayed. Every time the DC universe or whatever tries to outdo itself, whether it's Three Jokers, Joker War, The Man Who Stopped Laughing, The Batman Who Laughs, or whatever, they make him bigger, louder, and more dramatic. But bigger isn't better. The scariest versions of the Joker are the ones that really have a very specific kind of feeling. Like the scariest version of him isn't the one with the master plan. It's the one with no plan at all and going strictly off the motions that he wants to go with. Obviously, mainly saying this due to the fact that his main antagonizing opponent is the Batman, a person who is always planning everything. And the Joker is a very kind of character that has a very good intelligence to him. So even him, without having an exact plan of what he's about to do, will still be able to come up with everything that he kind of needs to do in general. Just because you can't really be working against the best detective in the world without having any strategy in place. And yes, the Joker's insane, but he's so insane that it makes him sane, which makes no sense when you think about it, but it makes perfect sense in general. So you don't got to worry about it. So yeah, the more that we try to define the Joker, the less he feels like chaos that he's supposed to be. And that's the irony. By giving Joker so much attention and giving him so much love and giving him all of this adornment, DC has made him too predictable. But yeah, don't get me wrong. The Joker is an incredible creation. He is an incredible character. He is a storytelling just genius in terms of how to write him, depending if you write him correctly. But he is a reflection of the darkest parts of humanity. Something that nobody wants to see too often, the way that they're doing now. He shows us what happens when empathy dies out and madness rules. But the key to keeping that reflection powerful is restraint, and the DC world does not really have that right now. The Joker doesn't need all of these extra stories and all of these extra places just to put him into. He needs that silence. He needs that absence. Because when he finally appears again, unannounced, unexpected, it should shake the foundation of Gotham. And that's how you make him terrifying again. The Joker's popularity isn't evil, but it does prove something. Sometimes when we fall in love with villains, we forget what made them villains in the first place. And I can only say this so confidently due to the fact that Batman has so many great villains in general. And if the Joker's getting all of this extra spotlight, it takes away from so many more villains that could easily be shown in any other medium. Because since the last, like, we just put it in the last 20 years, the Joker has had appearances in literally every version of anything related to Gotham. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, let's just take the Joker out of any Batman-related movies, TV shows, animations, or whatever, and just remove him from the plot line entirely, because he is still a very integral part of the story. But my main thing is, he doesn't need to be the center point of every kind of villainy that Batman has to have. We have villains like Hush, which is one of my favorite Batman villains in general. We have Mr. Freeze, the Penguin, all of these other characters that could easily be spotlighted into their own specific mediums to give them a better spotlight. And we've already seen how this worked perfectly with the Penguin TV show. We've seen how well that did and how good the story was for that. And that just sets the ground base because, as I said, a character like Hush, which would be an extremely interesting character to add into the world, could easily make his way in if we took a break from the Joker, because we have the Joker in live action, in animations, in shows, in basically everything, even when he doesn't really need to be involved. When we think about like the Batman movie, for example, that came out just a couple of years ago in like 2022. He wasn't even a part of that story entirely. Like, this entire movie was just based on the Riddler, which is basically honestly just a Hush and a Riddler mix, which annoyed me, but I didn't really mind because the movie was still incredible. But we involved Joker later on in like a post-credit scene or just like a delete scene or whatever. And he didn't really even need to be involved in the project because he doesn't really have any correlation. They just wanted to bring the Joker in because he makes money. And don't get me wrong, I understand wanting to bring characters in that make money just to keep making money, but you have so many other characters that you could involve into to have other options of money besides just the one character that will basically not benefit from being added into this. Because the Joker should never just be a mascot. He should never be somebody that is so seen, so all the time known that everybody is just wondering, like, we're gonna see him again, obviously in this movie. We're gonna see him in this movie. We're gonna see him whatever. We're gonna keep seeing him, so we don't gotta be too like scared about him or whatever. He should never be a symbol of coolness or rebellion or whatever. He should be a warning, a reminder of what happens in a world that loses its empathy, a reminder that he can cause chaos in the worst ways possible. Because when laughter becomes cruelty, when chaos becomes normalized, and all of this, it causes problems with the character that is so perfectly made. The problem with the Joker's popularity is that they turned the monster into a myth, and myths can tend to be safe. But with the Joker, that should have never felt like that. The Joker should never feel safe. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you guys think I'm right? Do you guys think I'm wrong? Either way, thanks for watching, and if you guys did enjoy this breakdown and like video analysis on what I think the problem with the Joker's character in like the popularity is, let me know down in the comment section below. But with all that said, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for more videos like this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.